So can you talk a little bit about what your style says about you?
I never really intend to look sexy or whatever. This is really not my thing. Whenever I dress in a certain way that you can see that I have like an ass and boobs and everything, I feel kind of threatened. I really don't like that. I don't like being looked at for that. Like really not. Like the male gaze in general is not something I feel comfortable with at all. Like today I'm wearing a bra because you asked me to, but I never wear one. And when people find out that I don't have big boobs, but I have like boobs, they're like, "Oh, you have boobs?" I'm like, "Yeah, but that you never saw before because like, not your problem." No guy comes to me like, no, really. I asked my boyfriend out. Otherwise, he told me like, if you hadn't do it, I would have never.
Can you talk a little bit about like an insecurity that you're working on overcoming?
I mean, I'm insecure about being abandoned, just being by myself and not loved. And this year, neither my brother or my younger sister wished me happy birthday because my mom is putting shit in her. I don't really talk to my mom anymore. I know how easy you can be let down by people. Starting from when I left the house at 18, it began to be like hell and being super on and off with my mom. Like 1 year without talking and then talking again but fighting all the time, and I've mostly felt that I wasn't being heard because I was saying stuff and she was like, yeah, that's not how it happens, you're making everything up. So we stopped talking to each other for 2 years, and then I heard that my stepfather had left her, so I called her immediately. I tried to have a very honest conversation with her, and it ended up being like, "Oh, but I know what you stopped talking to me. It was just because you were trying to be loved by your dad again." I was like, "What?"
By your biological dad?
Yeah, and because I stopped talking to my dad for a while because she put so much shit in my head. Because they had this awful divorce, the kind of divorce when you put the children in between. So that's also why I've always feel like I was in charge of everyone, and mostly in charge of my sister because she's sick. So. And my parents didn't come to the hospital when she was there, and I had to go like every Sunday. And then they were like, "Yeah, but this is not your place." I was like, "Okay, but who's gonna do it? Someone needs to do it." Because I was living with my sister at that time, and I told my parents, "Okay, I cannot live with her anymore because she's so depressed. I cannot, like, it's so hard for me to handle. So I need to move on and stop living with her." And they were all like, "Yeah, sure. Do that. It's good for you." And then my parents told her, "She's not a nice person to do that to you. She's a bitch." And my sister stopped talking to me for like 2 years. But now we good again, but it's...
The same sister that you were taking care of?
Yeah. So
because
it's...
they were kind of...
Triangulating.
Also, like, that's what my mom does. I'm learning how to be maybe kinder to myself. Her history is not nice at all. Like, she never knew her dad, her mom didn't like her. She's incapable of loving, right. But it's not her fault, and I get that. I forgave her for having a shit history, but really I'm not responsible for it. And I mean, you know, when you're like 13, 14, and you're having like fights with your mom because you're a teenager, and she's like, "Yeah, I'd rather just go in my car and just go and just bump to a tree and die," and you're like, "Okay, I'm sorry." And then you write her like super long letters to apologize, and she never responds, and you're like, fuck, I remember writing to her and be like, "I don't deserve you, I'm sorry." And way later, like 10, 15 years later, I realized that parents should thank their children, like, and not the other way around, you know. I've been through a massive breakdown last year. I couldn't date anyone, I shaved my head, everything was so dark. I was so depressed by the fact that I was once born, really. It was very painful for me. I never asked for any of this, and it's so hard to kill yourself. So you just have to like to carry the life can be so heavy, and you just like fuck. But I didn't want to die. I just wanted to stop living, which is very different. Mm-hmm. I was on medication for a while, and then there was this one day where I realized that I was in a very bad place. So I talked to someone for like 2 hours. Then I talked to my sister, and I threw all the medicines away while having her on the phone.
Okay. How exactly? Because you said earlier, like when we started asking you what's your biggest insecurity, you said that like abandonment and stuff. So where do you see the fear like kind of holding you back?
When you've been unhappy for a while, happiness is not a very comfortable zone for you. I'm glad if I'm happy and I enjoy it fully, but I always have, like when I'm happy, I always have this thing saying it's not gonna last, so enjoy. And so at some point I just go super down. Also because when I'm super happy, I'm hyper active, hyper loving, hyper everything. And then at some point I just need to stay in bed for 4 days like this. And I cry a lot. And then I'm back on track.
Right.
I have a hard time balancing my energy, like a very hard time.
What helps you stay
Grounded?
Yeah, like what helps you stay grounded?
Probably taking pictures and writing. Because it helps me keep track physically on my life and on how I feel. I mean, during the huge breakdown, I went on a trip to San Francisco by myself. I just took so many pictures. I wrote so much as well. I've met this psychic who told me that I should produce more stuff artistically and that I should do something every day. And then I came back and I did that. I did something every day. 2 weeks after this trip, I met my current boyfriend. So I think something just got a bit freed.
Can you take off the rings on the other hand? How has that relationship like been healing, or like what is the work that you've had to do in the relationship to heal?
We talk a lot. Like I've never talked so much with a guy before. And we communicate so much about like, hey, you've been hurtful. Okay, I'm sorry, but why did that hurt you? And then we talk. And it's been healing because when I met him, he had a massive problem with alcohol. Like he was drinking so much. I just told him, you know what? I'm done with that. So if you want to keep on drinking, you can, but like I'm not interested. And I'm sorry, but I'd rather stop right now because I just don't want to go on with that. And so the deal was you go see a shrink or I just leave. And he went to see a shrink and got sober for like 3 months. And that's actually the most beautiful thing anyone ever told to me. Like he told me that he'd rather be sober and with me than drunk and without me. Someone finally acknowledging what I was saying and what I felt.
Yeah, when do you feel the most beautiful?
It's so nice to have someone just looking at you with like sparkles in his eyes. When you wake up, your eyes full of shit, and it's like, oh, you're so beautiful. And you're like, what? But yeah, maybe that. Because even when I was modeling a bit, I mean, to me, it was hard to feel beautiful when everything about you is changed. Your style, your makeup, your identity is gone when you're modeling because that's your job. And even when people are like, oh, you're so beautiful like that, like, yeah, but that's not me, so no thanks, bye.
Skirt?
What is self-acceptance mean to you?
Knowing that you always have a choice, like always, even in the darkest times, you can always come back from darkness, always.
Thank you
Can
so,
you take
so
off?
much.
I forgot to have you take off your earring.
Yeah.
Will you just take that off last? Yeah. You're good.
It's so pretty, that little earring.
I know.
I didn't want you to take it off because it's so pretty.
Oh, you want to keep it on?
No, she should take it off.
Okay.
I was attached to it though.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. That was really beautiful.
Thank
Really
you.
super beautiful and honest and amazing and fascinating and inspiring.
This is my mom, Elisa.
And this is my daughter, Lily, and we're the creators of StyleLikeU.
You've just finished watching an episode of the What's Underneath project from our new season in Paris and Berlin.
So please join our self-acceptance movement by
Following us on Instagram, subscribing to our YouTube channel, and buying our latest book.